Good afternoon. And everyone has waited very patiently. I assure you, your wait will not be in vain. I'd like to just make a very quick introduction to all of you of the person we have here. I'm sure many people know who he is, but for those that don't, I'm just going to make a very quick account of his bio. Mr. Austin Avuru. Austin Avuru is a Nigerian geologist, entrepreneur, and oil and gas executive. He's the co-founder and former chief executive officer of Seplat Petroleum Development Company, for those of us that might be familiar with the company Seplat. In 2002, Austin Avuru founded Platform Petroleum Limited and served as its managing director. During this time, he played a pivotal role in the development of Nigeria's local content policy, chairing the technical subcommittee that drafted the policy blueprint, which became the Nigerian Content Act, 2010. In 2009, he co-founded Seplat Petroleum Development Company and was appointed its chief executive officer on May 1st, 2010. Under his leadership, Seplat achieved significant growth, including dual listing both on the Nigerian and the London Stock Exchange, the first and only Nigerian oil and gas company to achieve this feat. Avuru retired as CEO in July 2020 and continues to contribute to the company's growth in a non-executive capacity. He has expressed concerns that the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission is not investing sufficient effort and resource in decommissioning the abandoned assets in the oil and gas industry, instead devoting such time to reducing production costs and increasing Nigeria's output. He has written several books, including Politics, Economics, and the Nigerian petroleum industry. He is a philanthropist and a strong believer in Nigeria and Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, Austin Avuru.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, it's going to be an open conversation. We're going to go back and forth in, conversation style for just about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to turn into a full-scale town hall. There are many people that have come here from far just to have a conversation with Mr. Avuru, and that's exactly what we're going to give them. So in about 10 minutes, we're going to move either off the stage or in the crowd, and we're going to have conversations about what it takes for a Nigerian to build a world-class institution. So, sir, we'll start by asking, we've all heard about the achievements of Seplat. I know there's many other things you've done in life, but everybody here knows Seplat. And everyone is thinking, how can I create a Seplat? Is it even possible anymore? Or was it just a one-time thing that can never happen again?
Everybody here can create a Seplat. Maybe you start by creating a Platform Petroleum. Most people hear about Seplat and neither hear of nor talk about Platform Petroleum. But I'll tell you that 18-story office building at number 7 Ido Taylor, that is called, it's a tall tower, number 7 Ido Taylor. It's owned and occupied by Platform Petroleum. So there is still Platform Petroleum that we created 20 years ago, before we created Seplat Petroleum 15 years ago. Now, every one of these efforts in implementation is always quite normal and, in fact, easy. The point I'm making is the process of creating a major enterprise is usually not difficult. If it's looking very difficult, then you are doing the wrong thing. It's usually not difficult. It requires a clear vision, because every successful enterprise is solving a problem. It doesn't matter what you do. If that enterprise is successful, it means you are solving a problem, a major problem, and you are being paid for it. And so your vision will start by asking yourself, what problem are you setting out to solve? In which area of problem solving do you have the most passion? In which area do you have the most expertise and probably experience? When you answer those questions, then you start off with that clear vision, and then the execution has to be disciplined. I'm sure everybody who has spoken to you in these past 2 days has spoken about discipline, discipline in execution, ethical in your execution, and that in the process of your disciplined execution, you build trust. When you build trust, you attract investments, you attract partnerships, you attract people who will give you the ammunition to expand your business. I hope I haven't spoken too much, but take this away, that the process of building a successful enterprise is usually quite easy, and you just take it on your strides as you go, provided you start off with a very clear vision and that your execution is disciplined.
Thank you. So building a world-class institution is very easy. That's the first thing.
Yes.
But I want to be a bit realistic here, because let me tell you guys that might not be aware what a successful world-class institution looks like. Now, Seplat, as of today, is Nigeria's first and only dual-listed oil and gas company. Last year, Seplat acquired Mobil. For some of us here that grew up in Nigeria, driving to buy petrol at Mobil petrol station, yes, those are the downstream assets, but the upstream assets of Mobil, I'm talking about extensive infrastructure acquired by a Nigerian company. Now, can we really believe that that was easy?
So that in itself is a statement of the future of the Nigerian economy. The future of the Nigerian economy will rely on these young men and women sitting here. This economy in the past, since independence, has thrived on expatriate companies coming in here to extract raw materials. Whether it was cocoa, whether it was groundnuts, whether it was crude oil, or whether it was natural gas. These are all raw materials for industrialization of Europe and North America. What you're seeing when you're using the example of Seplat and now Renaissance and a number of other indigenous companies, we are turning that narrative around so that every segment of our economy, controlled by Nigerian companies, we seek to expand the Nigerian economy and create value out of those sectors rather than just make those sectors suppliers of raw materials. So for instance, Nigerian companies are expanding the consumption of natural gas in Nigeria. That's domestic supply of natural gas. As you can see with the Dangote refinery, we are moving from exporting crude oil to refining crude oil. In the next 3 to 4 years, almost all of the crude oil we produce will be refined here in Nigeria. So we'll be exporting petroleum products instead of crude oil. We will be exporting petrochemicals out of natural gas instead of exporting natural gas. So just the same way that Nigerians moved into the banking sector and seized it and expanded it into a Pan-African business, and you are seeing them now in manufacturing. We are latecomers in the business, but that's what you're seeing in the oil and gas industry. So what you consider a big feat of Seplat acquiring ExxonMobil is a statement of the future of the Nigerian economy that will be domiciled with Nigerian entrepreneurs, building value within this economy and not exporting raw materials.
I think that Seplat, the founders, the team, I think they deserve a round of applause for that statement of intent. So essentially what I understand from what you're saying is that you are showing us an example of what not only we can do, but what we must do.
Correct.
Okay. Now, it's not as easy as it sounds, although you've told us it's very easy to build a world-class institution. But I'm certain that there were incredible difficulties, not just in closing this transaction, which might have been the largest transaction we've seen in our career so far. The Shell deal was also quite interesting too, but this Mobil deal, such a statement of intent. Can you share with us, I know there are many secrets, but can you share with us one thing that you think may have been the deciding factor, and that for any of us here, any Nigerians or Africans sitting here that might be dreaming of an opportunity to do such a landmark acquisition that changes the narrative, what would that event or challenge be that you guys went through, that you overcame?
You know, first of all, as I said, most of this process of building an institution, and I want to repeat, we are just taking one decent step at a time. It's usually not so difficult. So we started by creating Platform Petroleum, a small operator that still produces 3,000 barrels a day. And shortly after that,
that's not small though. 3,000 barrels.
Well, after that, we said we'll move to the next level. We'll move to the next level. And Platform Petroleum teamed up with another Nigerian company, Sheba, and we created Seplat by acquiring 3 relatively small assets from Shell. Yes. So it's actually the plat in Seplat is Platform Petroleum, and the SE is actually Sheba Exploration. Yes, that's how the name Seplat came about. Now, once we made the acquisition, the next thing, as I said, disciplined execution. So the asset we acquired, we put it to production. In 2 years, we tripled the production from that asset. We assembled the best Nigerian brains we could, put in proper systems, and ran a good company. And that's why 3 years after, we were able to list the company on the main board of the London Stock Exchange and the Nigerian Stock Exchange, because we ran a good shop. Again, they were just normal, decent steps, nothing extraordinary. I'm telling you the truth. Nothing extraordinary. Just take disciplined steps, be sure what you're doing, be sure the direction you are going, and the results will simply move you to the next level. Now, once we had established Seplat at that level of credibility, it was only a matter of time before they expanded their operations. And so acquiring ExxonMobil was just the next step in that expansion. It will surprise you that our biggest challenges actually derive from what most people think, that this is not possible. And so the authorities, the government authorities that we require to give approval to these transactions were our biggest obstacles. Because in their minds, this is not possible. So when you start the transaction and apply for approval, the approval was the biggest headache we had, not the transaction itself, unfortunately. And I sympathize with the approval authorities because I know what's going on in their minds. This is not possible. If these people acquire this asset, they will make a mess of it. But they see what I've done with it since the acquisition happened.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean that's remarkable. This concept of this is not possible.
Yeah.
I think that may be our biggest problem.
Yes.
In Nigeria and in Africa.
Yeah.
You know, I think we constantly doubt ourselves.
Correct.
And it's not really our fault, you know. You in the environment that we grow up, we see glass ceilings. But what made you believe that it was possible?
Everybody who has been successful, including these young men and women, no matter how small your business is, you will start by defeating that statement, this is not possible. And that's self-belief. If you don't defeat that statement, you don't even get started. It doesn't matter how big or how small the enterprise is. I usually don't like to put my wife on the spot. My wife is a geologist and actually did a youth service in a multinational oil and gas company, Schlumberger, and ended up setting up a restaurant chain that is called Black Bear.
Is she here?
That's what
Is she?
that's what she runs today, and she's decided to make a success of it. She has over 1,000 employees in that business. She's a geologist. She started by simply saying, I have a passion for this, and I think it is possible. Right now, all she's thinking about is expansion, growing it into a mega business. Let me tell you, when she was starting, she wanted to take a franchise from what is now a very, very small chain, a very, very small restaurant chain. When she couldn't get a franchise, she set up her own. And so it's again defeating that statement that it's not possible, and you can achieve anything you set out to achieve.
I think that's fantastic. It's a great story to use and reference. And it's funny because I was about to just step back from Seplat and go to family. You know, I read that you met her at a geologist conference. Yes. You know, and I wondered, you know, how did it go from meeting as geologists, you know, to her starting up a massive and successful retail food chain. But more importantly, than from the business that she's doing, how has family influenced your investing, you know, philosophy? Whether it's on philanthropy or whether it's in oil and gas, the intensity, or other investments that I know you've made.
So where we are now, for me personally, so I now run a family office called AA Holdings. And a family office, the way I define it, is a private equity firm that does not take money from outsiders. The usual private equity firm will raise money and invest. But we use our own funds to invest in areas that we have carved out for ourselves. We're in oil and gas, we're in real estate, we're in the capital market, we're in agriculture. That's what AA Holdings does. That's what we run, that's why I'm executive chairman. She's not even a staff of AA Holdings, even though she's on the board. So she runs her own business, and that is Black Bear. But she's, of course, a beneficiary of AA Holdings, a key stakeholder in AA Holdings. She will eventually either absorb, throw her business into AA Holdings as a family office, or set up another family office for herself. Because what a family office does, essentially, is you have taken whatever you think your wealth is and put it into a basket and invest from that basket. And the people who ordinarily will benefit from you are then called beneficiaries. So they benefit from the profits that are made out of those investments. So today I run an investment company, really, no longer an oil and gas company. We invest in the oil and gas.
So two things now. So the first thing that comes to my mind is that you have successfully pivoted from, you know, working in an oil and gas company, and you've taken your earnings, your harvest from there, and you're investing it in other aspects. Do you think that with all the billionaires that we have in Nigeria and in Africa, do you think that African capital is doing as well as it should be doing? Because when you look around at the startups in Nigeria, in Africa, and you look at their cap tables, you see foreign investors all over the place, to the point where so many successful companies that we know today in Nigeria are actually owned by foreign investors. You know, so do you think that Nigerian investors, you know, who have been successful in a particular enterprise are doing as well as they should be doing? And if they are not, what do you think is missing?
Well, African capital is not quite as large in scope as foreign capital, which is why you're still seeing foreign capital coming in. But there is substantial investable funds in Nigeria, for instance, backed by a now much larger scope of Nigerian banks themselves. When we started in the oil and gas industry, a typical Nigerian bank couldn't lend $10 million. Today we are doing transactions in the hundreds of millions of dollars, which only Nigerian banks syndicating such loans. So there is sufficient depth now within the Nigerian banking industry. There are non-bank investors that are available. And most often you find out that once your business is able to attract domestic funding, foreign funding will more easily follow. So I don't believe in just running around the world looking for foreign funding. Start with domestic funding because it's available, depending on the quality of the enterprise, the quality of management, quality of board, and the trust you have built. It is available, and I can tell you, when you run a good shop, capital will start chasing you. That's what I found out from experience. So you start by chasing capital. When finally you run a good shop, capital will chase you, yes.
Okay, for some of the people I know we might have in the room, especially a lot of the young people at the back, they've been very eager to listen to you. What does a good shop look like in practical terms for a small business?
No matter how small it is, the governance structure must be world class. It doesn't matter how small your business is. Governance means that there is a structure that clearly delegates authority. There is a structure, a governance structure that clearly, apart from delegating and separating authority, your spend, how you spend, what you spend, your budgeting system, and what you're executing is actually your budget and work plan and nothing arbitrary. So the key word is governance. Once there's a strong, nice, really practical governance structure, because that's what investors will look at. Your governance structure, the history of your performance, that's what an investor will look at. And because any investor that is putting money behind your business is doing so because he trusts what you are doing and what you have achieved. And it's only governance that delivers that trust. Yeah.
Governance. Okay, so we promised that we would try to open it to have a more wider conversation. So we're going to move to that now. There are many more questions I have for you. Yeah. Okay. So do we have any questions from the floor for Mr. Avuru? Okay, we have one question over there. Two. Anybody else? Three. Okay, I think all the questions have now come. Can we get a mic over there first? Over there. So if you just start by introducing yourself and then go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for the organizers and thank you, sir. So I want to ask, as an operator and also as an investment person now you are, would you have a problem doing business with a company that is large but solely owned but have different directors on the board? So what I mean is, the board has only one shareholders but different directors. Would you have a problem with that?
To the next one.
My name is Oseyemo Igodalo, and I run a small real estate and oil and gas company in Port Harcourt and in other parts of Nigeria, with offices in other parts of Nigeria, called Bamboo Real Estate and also Bamboo Energy Limited. I want to first of all say thank you to the organizers, and most importantly to our guest, Mr. Austin Avuru. My question here says, from the very first question that was asked here, and he said, is this possible? Can anybody sitting here today be able to replicate the success of platform energy and Seplat as well? And Mr. Austin Avuru answered in the affirmative. But we all know that to do big business in Africa requires big funding. And as much as we can talk about, how the economy of Nigeria is growing and all of that, we know that access to funding, it's a big problem. And almost 90% of the people sitting here today would agree with me. Are there practical ways that young people who are building business, who have some sort of integrity, that have been tested maybe in their own local business or in their local community, can actually assess those funding? Secondly, are there practical ways we, as young people who are also coming up in the industry, can get practical mentorship, by the hand mentorship, to show us and say, this is the way to go? Because I think that if these two things are in place in Africa and in Nigeria, we would begin to see the desires and the answer to the questions Mr. Austin Avuru had mentioned earlier, that it is possible to replicate and build another CEPLAT or another platform. Thank you.
I want to start by thanking the organizers of this event. They've done well. Platform like this is really a catalyst for growth for young people. I want to say thank you. My name is Ambassador Julius Onoyumono. I am a real estate developer, and I'm diversifying into fintech. By next year, we should launch our fintech, VokePay. So it's my honor, sir, to meet you. I have just two questions, very brief. What are the biggest obstacles you have in your business, and at what point did you encounter those obstacles, and how did you overcome them? That's my number one question. What are the biggest obstacles you face in your business? At what stage do you face those challenges? How did you overcome them? 2, how do I enroll into your mentorship? Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Avuru, and well done to the conveners. My name is Frances Udukwu. Can you hear me? No. Is it better now? Okay. Good evening. My name is Frances Udukwu. I previously worked for Shell Oil Co. On the renewable energy side of business. And my question is, given the diversity of sectors you do business in, sir, so of course oil and gas, real estate, infrastructure, and also inclusive of your wife's F&B services, how can public policy and private sector collaboration be structured to ensure that these types of conversations translate to policy reform and institutional change? Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Joy. I am the founder of DIY Africans. We're a furniture company, and we're currently exhibiting at the exhibition stand. What we produce are furnitures, home goods, and the likes. And so the question that I have for you is, does the family office invest in companies like mine? Because we have our traction, shipping home goods around the country, and we're already at the point of scale up. With your permission, I'll give you our flyer.
Thank you. Let me start with the furniture company. We may not invest in a furniture company, but because we're into real estate, it's possible that we'll come around and patronize your products. Now, how do these conversations, how can we get them to translate into policy? It's tough to answer that. But what I usually say is, if we discuss this much and we don't get enough policy to back up and support our efforts to build an economy, can you imagine what it would have looked like if we were not discussing at all? So we have to keep discussing at forums like this. We have to keep exchanging ideas. We have to keep pointing out the things that should be done and done properly. Yes, policies will come out of this because people will listen, no matter what. They will listen at some point. But just bear in mind that it would have been a lot worse if we were not talking. So we have to keep talking. Now, let me go back to the first question. If we would invest in a large, solely owned business. So first of all, for us as a family office, we have defined our boundaries where we invest. We have 4 buckets. We invest in the upstream oil and gas. We invest in agriculture. We have a greenhouse and a palm business, oil palm business. We invest in real estate. and we invest in the capital market, which means we invest in traded equities. So if you have a solely owned business in any of these buckets, and you are looking for people to invest in that, we will look at it. But let me also say this, and that's a warning for everybody. If you are investing anywhere, 3 critical things you should ask yourself. How prospective is that business? Prospective means, am I likely to get back my money plus a decent profit? That business that we're investing in, after putting in money, whether it is production or whatever it is, how quickly can we get the products to the market so there will be revenue and I'll get back my money? But let me tell you the third thing you must ask yourself. Who is the counterparty? Who is the other person that I'm going to be doing business with? If any of those questions is no, walk away. If that business looks like you are picking up gold along the street, if it's looking so prospective, but the counterparty cannot be trusted, walk away. It's always a big mistake we make. You look at the business, it looks so attractive. If you don't do sufficient due diligence on the counterparty, even if there's so much money being made, so much money on the table, you spend the rest of your life in court, in litigations, fighting your partner, fighting everybody. So the counterparty is key. What I'm making is, we will invest in a solely owned business after due diligence on the counterparty and satisfying ourselves that we can do business with that counterparty. Now, everybody talks about access to funding. It is true, but it's almost a vicious circle. As I said, in the beginning, you are looking for capital. When you have built a track record, capital will look for you. So the access to capital is not as much the problem as we always say. When we started Platform Petroleum, we had to bring in a partner from the beginning and offered 40% of the field to the partner who brought in, who have availed us with part of the capital we needed. But even at that, we went out to raise, through what we call investment notes, additional money. But once we drilled our well and put it on production and demonstrated that we could run the field properly, and those who put in money were getting their money, now getting money to drill more wells and expand and even going on to build Seplat was no longer a problem. So yes, access to capital is an issue, but I can tell you it's not your biggest problem. Your biggest problem is setting out to meticulously build a business where you, as the manager of that business, can be trusted, and what you say you will deliver, people will believe that you can deliver because you have a history of delivering. That's probably more important than the so-called traditional difficulty in access to capital. Biggest obstacles, like any other business, your biggest obstacle is if in the process of executing your plans, you fail. And failure can come. In our business, you can drill a well and it is dry and you borrowed money. It does happen, which is why businesses fail and they get wiped out. There is no silver lining to say this is how to avoid that, but your biggest obstacle is failure during execution, which is why your planning must be very meticulous, and if possible, always have a plan B in case in execution it fails. It gets much worse if you borrowed. Of course, you borrow on the part of your plan is that the revenues from whatever you are doing will then service that debt. If in execution you fail, then you have the debt overhang on your neck. The easiest way to get wiped out is when you are not able to service your debt. Those are the things you have to consider when you are planning and when you are executing. Mentorship, I freely give out my phone numbers. Usually send a text. If you call, I may not pick, but send a text. And I can tell you that today, I spend at least 4 hours every day with people who just come into my office to ask questions. I plan to do this, or this is what I'm doing. What do you think? I take pleasure in doing that freely for as much time as I have. So I don't, so yes, I mentor people that make themselves available to listen to whatever my counsel is. Please don't rush to take my number when I leave here. You will get it, get my number from Ezinne. Send me a text and come over to my office when you have 5 minutes. Provided, make up your mind, you don't take more than 10 minutes when you come. Maybe 30 minutes, but no more than that. So that we'll have time to then do our formal business. Thank you very much.
So, governance. There's one thing that I heard him say, that you have to focus on proving that you're a manager that can be trusted to do what he says he will do. When you can prove that, capital will follow you. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you.